Welcome to the Ultimate Gamer Podcast, a show that features conversations with the trailblazers, thought leaders, decision makers, and investors who are defining the gaming and esports space. On the Ultimate Gamer Podcast, we take a journey into this dynamic industry and start to decode and reveal who and what's making news. It's about connecting, and it's about sharing the stories and vision of the people who make gaming and esports a global phenomenon. And now, please welcome your host, student of the game and connected to the esports community, Tommy Knapp.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tommy Knapp, and this is an all-new episode of the All About the Game podcast presented by the Ultimate Gamer. On today's show, I have a conversation with Dr. Marc Williams, global scholar practitioner and head of esports at Florida Memorial University. He is also a host of Dr. Marc's Masterclass, which receives 9 to 10 million views monthly. The story of his career trajectory is tremendously gripping, and his prominence in the entertainment landscape is palpable. Dr. Marc is known to be a sports and entertainment marketing guru, having collaborated with stars like Allen Iverson, Chris Brown, and Chris Rock during his time with Foot Action and Champs Sports. He channeled his passion for music, sports, and hip-hop culture to deliver major sponsorships and product placements for Champs and Foot Action in the entertainment industry. Later in our conversation, we discussed what led to his decision to leave corporate America and his career evolution into the esports space. Dr. Marc detailed his role at Florida Memorial and how he leverages his extensive experience to deliver expert advice to universities that are beginning to consider esports on campus. Dr. Marc has a captivating story to tell, one that includes being featured on the cover of Billboard magazine and sitting next to Usher at the Grammys. Please join me now for my conversation with Dr. Marc Williams. I didn't even, when they came out, like my kids were talking about this pop. I don't even know the characters, really.
Wow.
I probably should, right?
Yeah.
You know them?
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering. I was like, oh, this is part of your show. This is cool.
Yeah, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it's all just part of the show.
I don't play that game.
Good?
I play all sports games, man. So
yeah.
I'm not into any.
So how do you know these characters? We're rolling, so we're good.
Because I have nieces and nephews and students I teach, so they.
So what what are they from a specific game or?
Yeah,
it's Overwatch.
Yeah. So Overwatch, Activision,
Yeah.
I got a chance to go to the championships of Overwatch. I think the first one in Brooklyn a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I got a chance to learn more about it through my students when I taught classes at University of Houston and St. Peter's University.
Right.
So again, I don't play those games. I play all sports games. So I'm a sports guy. So
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're playing sports games now, but if we rewind and we go back and we start the journey. Did you start playing at a young age?
God. Yeah, when I played in television,
okay.
And Atari. I played basketball, a lot of basketball. I played basketball and track and field games.
Okay.
I played.
Oh my
Pac-Man.
God! Nobody has said that. There was a track and field game back in the day, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was.
And you kind of like.
Yeah. And you do all the different sports like decathlon and all that. Yeah.
Oh man, nobody's brought that up in all the podcasts I've done. Yeah, I totally remember that game.
Yeah, and then I'm trying to think. Pac-Man, obviously. Yeah. And then the Mattel games of basketball and football.
Well, I love the handheld games. Those are awesome.
They sell those in I think in Walmart and places like that.
Yeah, that's gotta be like an old school section or something of toys, right? Because all it was is a red dot.
Yeah. And you thought you were doing something really cool back then.
Yeah. It's amazing. And unlike today's gamers, like that was our fast fingers. Right? Yeah.
And now it's like I was watching 2K, and they have like the publicist and a PR person at the end of the game going up to the player and having them walk over to the reporter. I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So you obviously do have it. The gaming is in you.
Like the basketball in 2K, FIFA,
But
Madden.
that's today.
Yeah, today.
That's today. Yeah. So I still want to go through you started with those old school games that we're talking about.
Yeah, did Galaga, Atari.
Yeah.
Basically the arcade stuff.
Okay.
Pinball.
Yep.
I think Pac-Man was really obviously big for everybody.
Very big.
But Galaga was my game.
Yeah, I remember Galaga well.
Wasn't a big Donkey Kong
guy. Galaga the one where they come out like.
Yeah, and you got to shoot the little shoot the characters that come down. Yeah. So I love Galaga. And then Pac-Man, obviously. the racing car game. What was it? Run? What was that game called?
I don't remember that one.
But it was a racing car game. You could go into the when you go into the arcade.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was Born to Run or something like that.
But that felt pretty realistic. I remember that.
Yeah, that was pretty kind of realistic. Yeah.
So what I have found, like, is a lot of guys like us,
Yep.
people like us, I should say,
Yeah.
go from being gamers when they were like young, and a lot of it for us was either solo or it was just 1v1. There was no
Right.
internet, there was no like you couldn't compete that way, and then went away to either college and started working, and then kind of fell off a little bit, and then
Yeah.
came back into gaming.
Yeah.
So is that your story too, or have you kind of stayed in gaming the whole time?
It's been interesting because when I was in high school and middle school, I did it. College, I kind of did it for fun.
Where'd you go to college?
Undergrad, I went to North Carolina A&T in Greensboro.
Okay.
Finished at William Patterson. Then I did my master's at UMass.
Okay.
Did a doctorate at West Virginia.
Okay.
And they were all different stages of my life, which
Right.
is pretty crazy.
Right.
So when I was doing my master's at UMass between 97 and 99, I forget the console I was using, but I was playing like football, and basketball. And that kind of got me through the time. And then when I got to corporate America, 2000 and 2007, I mean, I played, but I was so focused on my career.
Right.
And so I wasn't really immersed in it.
Right.
And then around 2014 is when I got back into really getting immersed into it, because I was doing my doctorate and I was seeing that I was leaning towards that area, maybe teaching curriculum around that subject matter.
Okay.
And now I'm like, I have to play,
Right.
because I got students now telling me about games that I'm not sure of, or I'm not familiar with, or I haven't played.
Right.
So even if I don't play the shooter games, I still need to be familiar. I need to familiarize myself with them.
Sure.
So that I can speak intelligently about it. But I don't play them.
Yeah.
But the students will play it, and
Yeah.
they'll tell me about what they do.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're like doing this schooling, did you also start your professional career at that point? And what were you doing in your professional career?
Yeah, so I'm one of those students that I came from an educated family,
Right.
but I wasn't a serious student.
Okay.
So you can imagine how frustrating it must have been for my parents.
Yeah.
My father was educated for 39 years, and my siblings, my brothers and sisters, were academic rock stars.
Okay.
So they were all A students, and my brother graduated high school at 15,
Right.
and went to Cornell at 15 years old. And
I
all
went to
that.
Ithaca, so it was right
Ithaca,
across there.
right down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, I didn't care about school. I cared about athletics.
Okay.
And I got to college, and I did well my first year because I wasn't playing sports. They
Right.
said no sports for you. I think by the time I was a junior, when I transferred to go play sports, I had a 1.7. I had to come home.
Oh, wow.
So now I'm embarrassed. I don't, what am I going to do next?
Right.
And I went back to school when I was about 23, going on 24.
Okay.
To a school in New Jersey called William Patterson.
Yep.
And I went there, stayed there for about 3 years, graduated at 27, but got involved with the board of trustees. I was the second African-American student elected to the board of trustees.
Okay.
Was on the finance committee, learned about business acumen, all that wonderful things.
Wow.
And then I said, I want to do something around sports and entertainment.
This is in what year? This is
97 to 94 to 97.
Okay.
Yeah, at William Patterson.
Yep.
And so for me, it was all about music. So at that time, Biggie had just came out with Ready to Die,
Yeah.
94. Came out September 9th, 94.
Okay.
And then he died March 9th, 97,
Right,
when I
right.
graduated,
Right.
like a month before I graduated.
So you were an East Coast guy? Because
I'm
East
from
Coast,
Jersey.
West Coast was.
Yeah, I'm from
They were
Jersey.
going at it, right? Was it
Yeah,
Tupac
but
and Biggie were-
but you know what? That was to me.
That was all media? It was
I
all-
think it was all media, and then unfortunately, Pac's crew and everybody made it bigger than what it was, and ultimately
Right.
the demise of both of those men, great stars.
Yeah.
And so for me, I love both of those gentlemen, but I was a bigger Biggie fan, and Tupac's from Baltimore, so it's not like he's from the West Coast, But I love West Coast artists, and I love all the guys in the West Coast, and Snoop and Dre and those guys.
Yeah.
But for me, it's always been about the culture of understanding the hip hop.
Right.
So for me, I knew that in hip hop, you would also look at the fashion, you look at the video games, look at the sports.
Yep.
And those are the things that I was immersed in.
Even in '97, video games was part of that.
Oh yeah, it was always a part of it.
Yeah.
Always a part of it, but it's just that it was never connected,
Right.
right? So you always had hip hop artists playing video games.
Right.
You always had athletes that wanted to be hip hop artists.
Right.
And so you had all those people, wanting to do those things, but you never saw anybody bring it all together.
Right.
I remember on YoMTV Raps with Dr.
Dude,
Dre
I
and
love
Lover.
that show. I used to love
and
that
they
show.
would put video games on the show. They would
Yeah.
bring hip hop. They would bring athletes
do
on the show.
remember that kind of- yeah.
So it was there, but no one really talked about it. But you have celebrities that would have gaming tournaments, and it'd be popular amongst the gamers or that community. But the average fan, didn't have access to Twitter and YouTube back then,
Right.
in early
Didn't
90s.
exist, right.
But you read it in the magazines that Snoop or somebody's playing Madden and they're good at it or something. But now you can see it now live, on YouTube, or you can see it live on Instagram now, people competing. And now you see hip-hop artists that want to be athletes, and athletes want to be hip-hop artists.
Yep.
And the gamers want to be both, right?
Yeah.
So it's good to see the marriage of all three of those entities.
So
come
the
together.
97, you're getting involved in the music industry.
I was always connected to the space in terms of me loving
Right,
hip hop and
right,
music, right?
right.
So I grew up in the '80s, grew up around Bon Jovi, Judas Priest, Twisted Sister, Madonna,
Yeah.
Prince, and all that.
Yeah.
Then Run DMC,
Yeah.
and so I was into that.
Yeah.
But all my friends that listened to rock and roll, they were like, "What is this rap stuff?"
Right, right.
And I'm like, "LL Cool J, Run DMC."
Dude, I listen to both.
Yeah.
I was one of those that listened to both.
Yeah.
So when you talk, obviously Run DMC, LL Cool J, Kool Moe D,
Yeah.
Public Enemy was one of my favorite bands.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
NWA, which was more hardcore.
Yeah, much
but,
more hardcore,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, loved it.
Yeah.
So I was one of those, I've always been at different music at different times.
Yes,
You know what I'm
yes,
saying?
yeah,
When
yeah.
I wake up in the morning now, if I go to work, I put on classical music because if I'm working, you can have music, but it's not lyrics that you know. I
Right.
couldn't throw on Public Enemy now because I know too much of the music.
Right,
Too much.
right.
Bon Jovi, I know too many of the words.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you can't focus when you're singing the song.
Yeah. And the music, and then in the video, when you have classical music, you don't really see any music videos
Yeah,
for that.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So your mind's clear.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I'm 50. So
Right.
so for me, like I said, I understand the generation,
Yeah.
but I also understand people older than me where they are just like, oh, down with this video game stuff. What
Right.
are you talking about?
Right.
But I think people in my age group and younger than our parents, they can relate somewhat to the gaming stuff because they did it.
Right.
The difference is between when we were in school and the young people now, they actually have careers in it.
Right.
So we didn't have that opportunity. We was
no.
just for fun for
Right.
us. Now these kids are competing for millions of dollars.
Exactly.
And they get a
it's
chance.
created all these other opportunities
Yes.
in the industry because, like you said, it's not just a recreational pastime.
Right.
Now there's entire businesses being built around these games and these titles.
Yeah. So it's interesting that I never thought in my life that I would ever be able to do something like this for a living.
Right.
And for me, it doesn't feel like work.
Right.
They always say you find a job you love, you never work a day in your
Exactly,
life.
right.
And so for me, I'm working
Right.
and I put work into it, but I don't look at it as, oh my God, I got an awful boss, and oh my God, this is a terrible job.
Right.
I don't want to ever be in that kind of situation in my
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
So I created this environment where I can teach, learn, and motivate and inspire at the same time.
Yeah, but you're jumping ahead on me though.
Yeah.
Right?
I know.
Yeah, because 97.
Yep, 97.
97. You were working with Big E or?
No, I just loved him. I was
Okay.
a big fan of
Okay.
his. And so 97, I finished undergrad school,
Yeah.
and then I went and did my master's at UMass. Now
UMass.
UMass, they had a sport management program.
Yep.
Which I knew nothing about sport management.
Yeah.
So they said it's the #1 program in the country.
It was.
It's the second oldest program in the country
Yep.
behind Ohio U.
Yep.
And actually St. Thomas University that's here, they're the second oldest undergraduate program.
Okay.
But UMass is the first one to have a PhD program in 1972. So I said, okay, I'll go to UMass. I got accepted to the program, and you learned about traditional sports, college athletics, Olympic sports, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
They didn't talk about the shoe industry.
Right.
They didn't talk about music. They didn't talk about fashion.
Right.
But I kept thinking, why aren't you talking about this stuff? And they're looking at me like, Williams, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's the NBA, NFL, Olympic sport. And I'm just like, yeah, but at those events, there's music.
Yeah.
There's also movies tied to it. They didn't understand what my classmates looked like. Are you crazy?
Right.
What are you talking about? And so I knew that there was a place out there for this. I just didn't know where it was at.
Right.
And so we were always thinking so technical about education. And so they would talk to us and say, if you really want to work in the sports industry, you got to start out doing ticket sales. And I'm like, I don't want to sell any tickets.
Right.
And I'm like,
by the way, that's how I started.
yeah. And it's an entry, but
Right.
it's not the only way.
Right.
So a lot of my classmates thought that's the only way to do it. Or if they were specializing in sponsorship, or if they were going to do, they wanted to be an attorney and they wanted to be a deal broker, or if they wanted to maybe do marketing, they had to start off at the lowest end of the totem pole. I'm thinking, I'm going to have a master's from the top program in the country, and I'm only going to make $40,000.
Right.
That makes no sense to me. That sounds crazy.
Right.
So I kept my mouth shut and watched and stayed patient. And I met this gentleman back in '95 named Dr. Richard Lapchick. He is like the social conscience of sport.
Okay.
So he's like the Martin Luther King of the sports industry.
Okay.
But he's white.
Right.
So this guy, he every year he has a racial and gender report card.
Okay.
And he examines and looks at all the sports leagues and teams who's doing a great job of hiring women, ethnic minorities, or whatever. And he puts this report card out.
Right.
So all these sports teams and leagues are scared of him because they're like, I hope he gives us a good grade.
Right.
So he met me at a conference when I presented my research. I did research. I should go backwards. So I did research in 1995, and when I was finishing my degree, I got a chance to go out to Nebraska, University of Nebraska.
Sure.
And the National Science Foundation invited 9 students from around the country to learn how to do research.
Right.
Now, I'm the 1.7 guy a few years earlier.
Right.
Now I'm at this new school. I'm 25, 26, and now I get selected out of, let's say, 5,000 students around the country
Right.
to go to the University of Nebraska and learn how to do qualitative and quantitative research on any topic I wanted.
Wow.
So the other 8 students did theirs on education and diversity. I said, I'm a sports guy. Who's in Nebraska? Nebraska football.
Yeah, man.
Tom Osborne.
Yeah.
National
At that time,
championship.
Yep.
So I asked Tom Osborne, I know you just won a national title. Can I do research on your football team? And he said, absolutely.
Okay.
Why did he say yes? Because he has a PhD in psychology.
Okay.
So I said, okay. So I went out to Nebraska. Tom Osborne said yes, which is amazing because they just won a national title.
Yeah.
He's not interviewing with hardly anybody,
Right.
but he's allowing me to do research on his football team and look at how his athletes looked at discrimination practice and how they perceive career opportunities for their athletes. My research got published in 2 journals
Right.
as an undergrad.
Right.
Again, I'm the 1.7 guy. I'm
Right.
now getting published.
Yeah.
So long story short, when I was presenting at this Eastern Sociological Conference, Dr. Lapchick was there, and I kind of like referenced him a lot in my paper.
Okay.
He was the keynote speaker.
Did you know you knew he was going to be
He was
there?
the keynote speaker.
Right, okay.
But I have my own little session that I'm
Right.
speaking at, but no one's come to hear an undergrad talk. So I had about 5 people in my session, right? Even though I had a cool topic, he's the main speaker, 2,000 people. So I'm in the hallway, got that Jersey swag, and said, hey, I'm Mark Williams. I'm an undergrad. I just did research on race at Nebraska. He's like, really? I said, can you come and hear me talk? Because I reference you a lot.
Right.
He sat in the front row.
That's awesome.
So I'm doing my research. I'm talking, and I'm like, research done by Lapchick.
Dude,
He's
like a
sitting
lot of
right
people
there.
wouldn't want to do that because you just put like additional pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
like,
for me, I
right.
wanted him to hear me.
Yeah,
because
no,
I-
you
'cause- yeah.
got to put pressure on yourself
Yeah.
because you're giving yourself the opportunity to
Yeah.
talk to the man that's basically your reference. But still, that's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, he's actually going to say yes, and now he's going to be there, and not only be there, but sitting right in front of you.
Yeah, but the funny part about it is maybe because I've been through so much already, dropping out of school and having a 1.7.
Right.
I'm fearless now. It's
Right,
time.
right,
It's
right,
go
right.
time.
You said Jersey swag, bro.
Yeah, you gotta have it, man. And so for me, it's go time. He sits there.
Right.
I didn't know he would say yes. I wanted him to say yes. And then he gets in front of 2,000 people in his keynote address and says, before I start, I want to acknowledge a young man I
Oh,
just
that's
heard.
awesome, dude.
And he says, this man, he says, stand up. He's the future of sport.
Right.
When I stood up, about 11 people had came over to the table and given their business cards. They're all administrators at universities, including
Right.
the president of Harvard, Princeton, University of Chicago.
Wow.
Because I thought I was going to do a PhD in sports sociology.
Right.
So the birthplace of sociology is the University of Chicago.
Yep.
So the dean and the president had given me their business cards.
Wow.
So I thought I was going to do a PhD in sports sociology. So that was my mindset. And then I met at the same conference the head of, I think, development at UMass Amherst. I had already applied to their PhD program and got in.
Right.
And he said, we have a PhD, we have a master's in sport management, 1 year program. And I'm like, okay, it's 5 years PhD, 1 year master's. I'm gonna do the 1 year master's.
Right.
But I didn't know it was a tough program to get into.
Right.
So I decided, okay, let me do it. Let me apply. Let's see if I get in. Well, because Dr. Lapchick is now my mentor, they love him
Right.
and they also fear him.
Right.
But by this time, I had 2 things published, had decent grades,
Yeah.
but my GMAT and GRE scores are going to be really low. I'm not a great test taker. Well, I'm about to apply to the program, and I went to a basketball game. The Nets were playing against the Portland Trailblazers, I think it was. No, Charles Barkley played for them.
Okay.
John Calipari is now the new coach for the Nets. He's a UMass grad.
Right.
I'm UMass alum, rather. I'm UMass former coach.
Right.
So I went to the game, and I got a chance to go to the VIP area, and I had on press pass, and we had to give the press pass back from the tour. I kept my press pass because I know what a press pass does.
Right.
So during the game, I kept the press pass. I stayed on the floor. At the end of the game, I went to the press room, and I had on a whole bunch of UMass gear on. And John Calipari, since he came from UMass, I sat in the front row on purpose, and he's answering. They just lost by 30,
Right.
and he's like, the second question, he goes, "Excuse me, what are you doing with all this UMass gear on?" I said, "Well, I'm going to grad school there." He said, "You're kidding." In the middle of the press conference, like, "You're kidding me. I got some people I need you to meet."
Right.
Calipari saying this to me.
Right.
So the end of the press conference, he takes me back, introduces me to Bruiser Flint, who's the new coach of UMass. He said, "You need to meet this guy. I like his swag. I like his energy." He said, "If you're applying to the program, let him know you know me." So I get to my interview that Wednesday for my interview for UMass, and right when they ended my interview, they said, "You know what? We usually don't accept people the same day, but we're gonna just let you know that we're gonna offer you an opportunity to come to graduate school here." And he said, "You're everything John Calipari said you are."
That's awesome.
And I'm like,
So
he just met
Calipari.
me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
from there, I got to UMass, and I was thinking about, I want to work in the NBA. I want to work in maybe work with college athletes maybe and help them with their life. And the NBA had a strike, so I didn't get a chance to work in the NBA. So I got like 8 job offers doing ticket sales. I don't want to do that. I turned them all down, right? And then the guy that Pete Roby, the guy that I told you about, his name is Dr. Lapchick.
Yep.
When I was in grad school, he introduced me to a number of executives at a conference, and one of them was a director of marketing at Reebok.
Okay.
His name is Pete Roby. I met him, kept in contact with him, got to know him. 97, 98, email is like getting ticket to a Katy Perry concert, right?
Right.
So email was a big deal. So I sent him emails. I was checking in with him. Boston and Amherst is about an hour and a half from each other. So he would invite me to Boston. I'd go to Reebok events, go to the Celtic events, go to Red Sox events. That's all. And he was an African-American male, graduated Dartmouth, coached at Harvard. Now he's at Reebok as director of marketing. And he never was cocky, never was arrogant, never talked about his accolades at all.
Right.
So he's watching me all this time. I have no idea that he's paying attention to me.
Right.
So when I graduated, he called me. I was in the barbershop, and I'm really angry with myself. I gotta find a job. And Michael Jordan's on the cover of Newsweek. So I'm reading an article, and it talks about the $10 billion that he generated for the economy.
Right.
And then there's a quote from Pete Roby, my mentor.
Right.
And I'm thinking, what does he got to do with Michael Jordan?
Right.
What he did not share with me was when Michael Jordan, during the Dream Team years, him, Scottie Pippen, and Barkley, they don't want to wear the jacket for the Olympic ceremony. It was a Reebok. And so he put the U.S. flag over the logo.
They wouldn't want to wear it because it's Reebok, it's the brand, not
Right.
because they didn't like the gear.
No, they didn't want because of the brand. He's a Nike guy.
Yep.
Well, he didn't tell me at the time that he's responsible for the Olympic team wearing the jerseys.
Okay.
So he brokered the deal, but he never told me that.
Okay.
So the reason why he's talking about Michael Jordan is because he had that relationship.
Right.
So and it didn't say director of marketing now. It said senior vice president.
Okay.
So he went from being director to senior vice president in the time that I met him, but he never told me.
Right.
Because he wanted to see what kind of integrity I had, I guess.
Right.
So I looked at this, I'm like, wow. So I called him. I didn't have a cell phone at the time, 99. So I went back to my apartment, had the rotary phone, called him on a rotary phone, congratulated him. He goes, "How would you like to work for me at Reebok?" Just like that.
Right.
And I'm like, okay.
No interview, no nothing, because
No.
he already knows.
He already knows
He's
me.
already done it. Yeah.
And I said, all right, I'll come. And I went there, and the first day on the job, he's like, gave me 2 airline tickets, one to Philly and one to L.A. I said, I need you to work with one of our biggest people in our brand. His name is Allen Iverson.
Oh, right.
So my job was to kind of be around Allen Iverson and help him with the brand and make sure that he understood his talking tips. And
So at that point, you're a brand manager for Reebok with Allen Iverson as your main client.
No, what I was my first position was intern, right? Because it was like 40 people can be interns,
Right.
but they paid me like a marketing manager.
Okay.
So I'm his assistant
Okay.
and an intern,
Okay.
but I'm getting treated like I'm a director.
Right.
So he has me working there. He has me working it's not N1, but the Rucker League tournament that Reebok sponsored.
Okay.
The high school All-American camp where I got a chance to meet all the women coaches around the country.
Right.
So I'm touching a lot of things. I'm touching classic division, women's division, entertainment division in 6 months.
Right.
And then the vice president, the other vice president, Sean Neville, became the CEO of a company called Foot Action.
Yeah.
He saw the good things I was doing at Reebok, because he was at Reebok, and he bought me and made me the national marketing manager for marketing at Foot Action.
Right.
And that's when he said, I want you to go after the entertainment and music industry and the video game industry. Because our
he said video game industry at that point. This 2000?
Well, because he said, what are 12 to 24-year-olds? That's our consumer. What do they do for fun? Right. I said, play video games, watch music, play, get on TV, watch sporting events. And he goes, well, let's go after those industries. And I'm still not trying to figure out how do I do that.
Right.
He said, we play music videos in our store, right? Well, those artists, let's talk to those artists. You know those artists because you work with them at Reebok.
Right.
And I said, oh. So I called up, I met some of the artists and some of the managers at the companies, and one of the companies was a company called Rough Rider. That's the company that DMX, record label that DMX was under.
Okay.
So DMX, Eve, and Lalox, and all those people. And he said, what artist is going to be big this year in 2000? So I had to think about it. Who's going to be big? I said Eve. She's got a sophomore album, and it's going to be called Scorpion. So I said, all right, let's talk to them. I had to gamble with who's going to be big.
Right.
Meanwhile, Michael Jordan had a record label called Hidden Beach.
Okay.
He had an artist called Jill Scott. And
I never knew that.
So Jill Scott, they were like, hey, Marc, we work with Jill Scott. Well, if I had to choose between the two, Michael Jordan's a cool guy.
Right.
But guess what? Our consumers, 12 to 24-year-old urban males,
right.
They don't listen to Jill Scott. Their parents do.
Right.
They listen to Eve.
Right.
So I had to choose between Jill Scott or Eve. I'm like, I choose Eve.
Right.
And we chose Eve, and she's supposed to sell maybe, I don't know, I think 400,000 records.
Okay.
And we partnered with them. We partnered with Best Buy, and we gave her a clothing line in our stores. So now she sells 3.2 million records, and she nominated for 2 Grammy Awards now.
Right.
So now I'm on the cover of Billboard magazine with her.
You were?
I'm on the cover,
Nice.
yes, on the cover of Billboard with Eve.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. So every record label in the country started calling me.
Right.
So I got a call from L.A. Reid. He wanted me to work with this group called Outkast.
Right.
And Jermaine Dupri. And then work with this guy named Bow Wow. He did a movie called Like Mike. We did product placement in that. So now I'm working with all these artists, launching their albums in our stores, but also giving them an opportunity to get a clothing line in our stores.
Right.
So we're the first retailer in history to ever give a hip hop artist a clothing line deal. So Run DMC did this on My Adidas, but they didn't get paid for it. They were just talking about it.
Right.
So back in the day, hip hop artists did not understand their value. So they would sing about the products that they wear, but they weren't getting compensated for it.
Right.
So we were the first ones to do that.
Right.
So
that was at Foot Action.
Foot Action, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we did that with them, and then the interesting thing, there's a guy named Jay-Z and 50 Cent. They wanted to do a deal with Reebok. They did. Steve Stout, the music executive director, he put the deal together, but he had to bring it to retail.
Right.
So they had to come to us. So we brokered that deal in terms of retail space for Reebok to put it in all of our stores and Foot Locker, Champ Sports, and everywhere.
Okay.
And so I got a chance to be part of that.
Right.
So now I'm looked upon as this guy that's a sports retailer, marketer, but I'm working with all the hip hop artists around me.
Right.
And so when we did that, I'm at the Grammy Awards. I see Beyonce and Destiny's Child over here. I see a woman named Oprah Winfrey sitting in the front row over here. I see Jay-Z and Damon Dash over here, and Beyonce and Jay hadn't even met yet, right? And I'm sitting next to my CEO and this guy named L.A. Reid, music mogul, and next to him is his artist his name is Usher.
Right.
He's sitting, so I'm just tripping, I'm sitting. I'm been out of school maybe 2 years, and I'm now doing this.
You're out of school 2 years, but you're 27, 28, 29?
I'm 20, 29, yeah.
Okay, so all right. So
all the things that my classmates said I couldn't do, I'm now doing this within 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'm at the Grammys sitting in the third row.
Right.
And after the commercial break, when Outkast got their third Grammy, they shouted out Foot Action and shouted me out. Right. They had a commercial break, and this one guy's behind me, and he goes, "Are you Marc Williams?" And I'm like, "Yeah," but it didn't sound like it was more like, "Are you Marc Williams?" Right. It was Chris Rock.
Right.
So Chris Rock said, "I got a movie called Head of State."
Good impression, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I do impressions too, so we can talk about that later. So Chris Rock says, "Yeah, I got a movie called Head of State." Now he's talking to me about this movie in the middle of the Grammy floor, and I've got Destiny Child over here. I'm looking at Beyonce and Kelly. I'm like, wow, they're beautiful. And I see Oprah. She's just regal. And I'm looking at Jay-Z, and I'm like, he's just cool. I got all this stuff in my head, and Chris Rock's talking to me.
Right.
I got Usher sitting over here, and I'm just like,
man,
what the hell?
Right.
So next thing you know, he says, I got a movie. I'm gonna be the first black president. I'm running for president. But imagine me walking into a shoe store.
He's telling you this right there?
Yes, he's telling me all this stuff.
Right.
And he says, imagine if it's a foot action store.
Right.
And I'm walking into the store and I'm buying shoes. And that's what happened in the movie. If you look at the movie, Bernie Mac is his brother. He goes to a foot action store and he comes out wearing FUBU gear. And you see a number 252 jersey. It was Ray Lewis number.
Yeah.
We shot it in Baltimore.
Right.
That's called product placement.
Yeah.
So now I did product placement with Chris Rock.
Right.
They didn't stop there. He introduced me to one of his good friends because he liked what we did for him. We did a sweepstakes in our store. We did a 3-minute video of the movie in our store, trailers.
Yeah.
So we had a Nielsen score because we had over 1 million people watch our videos
Really?
in our store. So now I'm talking to record labels and they're paying me almost 6 figures to put a 3-minute video in our stores, right? And then I've got movie companies now saying, how do we attract? If we want to market to the 12 to 24-year-old urban male, we got BET, we got Sports Illustrated, but now we got a sports retail store we can advertise in.
Right.
So they're paying me double the amount.
Right.
Okay. So our revenue stream, we went from being the 5th largest athletic retailer to number 2 overnight behind Foot Locker. Okay.
5th to 2nd.
From 5th to 2nd within a year.
Wow.
Because we were averaging about almost 14 million a month in revenue.
Right.
Just that alone.
Right.
So we did the movie. We got a chance to meet this guy named Will Farrell. A movie called Kicking and Screaming.
Yeah.
Product placement in that. Yeah. And we even did a movie called Sideways, which has nothing to do with our demographic, but we're in that. It got nominated. It won an Oscar.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to do with our demographic, but we got we got product placement in that movie.
Right.
So I've done over 100 feature films as a sports marketer. Where I got a chance to be on the set of the movie and putting our product in there, as well as videos, and then now video games in 2003.
Right.
Street Hoops basketball. 2003, Activision, #1 basketball video game in America, and we have a foot action store in the video game.
Right.
First time ever it's ever happened.
Right.
And so we went on to do about 45 to 50 games in my career between foot action and Champ Sports, where I got a chance to do that. So I know I said a lot.
Yeah. But what happened with foot action?
So I was there for 3.5 years,
Yeah.
and Champ Sports was tired of getting their butts kicked in terms of the whole market share.
Right.
So the CEO and vice president said, you need to come here. So they created a position for me to come to Champ Sports.
Right.
And I went there I think I was 31 when I went there.
Okay.
And I became the first black senior executive in sports retail.
Okay.
And so now I'm working for Champ Sports, and they're like, okay, our consumer is not urban, it's suburban. So it's 12 to 24-year-old suburban males.
Right.
I'm like, what does that mean? They thought suburban was white and urban was black. And I'm like, no,
right.
Suburban is a lifestyle. So I had to explain that to them.
Right.
But the things that they do in the urban communities is the same thing they do in the suburban community. They listen to hip hop too.
Right.
But they may listen to more grunge but again,
Right.
they listen to it.
Yeah.
So I now had to make sure that when I did my stores in the suburban malls, that they had a little bit of hip hop, a little bit of pop and grunge and whatever. So it kind of, people in those spaces could like it or whatever.
Right.
So instead of doing music and entertainment, they're like, okay, you've done enough of that. We have sports in our name in Champ Sports. We want you to let's do a college bowl game.
Right.
So we did the Champ Sports Bowl. I created that bowl game. Yeah. It was between the Big East and the ACC.
Yeah.
Like a $5 million payout. We did a 3-year deal with that. That was cool. But I was still like, we still need to do sports and entertainment. They said, no, let's do arena football. We did arena football. We were the title sponsor with Army.
Right.
We did that for 3.5 years. I'm like, I need to do entertainment.
Right.
And they said, okay, fine. Go figure it out. So I decided, all right. I had met this guy, L.A. Reid and Usher.
Yep.
And so Usher said, we got to do something special. So he invited me to the studio in 2003. It was, December 2003. He brought me to the studio in Tampa. And he says, I want you to listen to this record. This album is coming out in March. And it was called Confessions, his album.
Okay.
And so with with Little John and all that.
Yeah.
And I brought it back to the company. I said, we should work with Usher. They're like, no more music. I'm like, all right. His album comes out March 23rd, 2004, and he sold 17 million. And then I was like, okay. Then 2 weeks later, I get invited to an award show, and there's a woman who had a new song that we played in our stores, and she said, you got to play my music in your stores. And I said, we do that. Well, can I do a deal? And I'm like, if they didn't want to work with Usher, they're not going to want to work with her.
Right.
They didn't want to work with her.
Right.
We played her song. Her name was Sierra.
Right.
Russell Wilson's wife now.
Right.
We played her song Goodies. And then this is when it was time, I knew it's time to leave corporate America. A good friend from Def Jam Records says, look, I've got a great artist. I'm getting ready to leave Def Jam. She was here for 25 years. I said, I'm leaving. and I want to manage this artist. I want you to co-manage this artist with me.
Right.
I said, okay. So I looked at the artist. I'm like, oh my God, this artist is amazing. I brought it back to Champs. They're like, okay, look, we'll do the music video. We outfitted him for his first 2 music videos. We did his first concert for him, and then they said, oh, we don't want to do music. His name was Chris Brown.
Right.
And so we did Run It, and his second video, Yo. We did his first major tour. They said no. And I said, it's time to leave corporate America because they're not getting it.
Right.
And I walked away. I didn't get fired. I didn't get laid off. I walked away, making well over 6 figures and 35 years old. And I'm not sure what I want to do with my life.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's when you then go get your doctorate.
No, I decided to start my own company.
Okay.
So for 4 or 5 years, I was doing marketing for other brands, and I still was, my wheels are spinning, and I'm thinking, something's wrong.
Right.
And then I started speaking at different universities, and I noticed that there was a disconnect between the president, the administration, and the student body and the faculty. And I said, universities need to have presidents that really connect with everybody.
Right.
And I didn't see that at a lot of schools. I said, maybe I should be a university president. I don't need a doctorate for it, but I decided to go and get a doctorate. Right. And I did. I went to West Virginia University and did that for 3.5 years. And while I was there, my PhD was in how to prepare athletes for life after school. I went back to my 1995 days.
Sure.
So, because I still had that research bug in me.
Right.
And so I did it with the Big Ten Conference. I created a leadership program for student athletes.
Okay.
A guide to help them, understand their brand and who they are and how to prepare them for life. But in the meantime, I'll get a call from Konami, 2013. They have a video game in stores called an arcade game called Dance Dance Revolution.
Right.
So people are learning how to dance, but now they want.
They just called you out of the blue?
No, I had a friend that I went to school with. His wife was a consultant for them.
Okay.
So she said, I think Konami will want to work with you,
right,
because I think that you can really help them. And I said, what am I going to do? She said, well, we want to go to inner cities and give them an opportunity to learn how to lose weight and eat healthy foods. So they want to create a game for the kids, like a step game, but it was like 20 grand. How are they going to pay for it? So we had to petition to Congress so they can create some funding so we can get these apparatuses into the inner city schools. Because at the time, Michelle Obama, she was doing this thing, her movement.
Right.
So we were able to get that passed, and then now you've got a lot of inner city schools that are using this apparatus that Konami made to teach kids about dance and how to eat healthy. So I'm now thinking in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, should I be doing my dissertation on this, or should I be doing it on the video game industry?
Right.
But I just kept it that way, and I kept my eye on the side watching the gaming industry.
Right.
When I graduated, all of a sudden, I started noticing, big companies, the big video game companies started saying, we're getting ready to really, esports is about to emerge in colleges.
Right.
So I went to the 2018 Overwatch Championships in Brooklyn. So my friend invited me to
but
that.
you just skipped. So we're just jumping ahead now to 2018?
Yeah, because I wasn't doing anything with
Right,
gaming.
right. So 2012, you start seeing it whispers, and then 2014, Robert Morris gives the first college scholarship, and then so 2018,
And I started reading about it more and more, but I wasn't thinking about me being involved in it.
Do you have what's the company you're working at this point?
I started my own company.
It's
my company.
Okay.
I'm consulting at universities.
Yep. What was the company called?
It still is Williams Communications.
Williams Communications.
LLC.
Okay.
So we're a branding marketing company.
Okay.
And we have clients from Movado Watch to the NFL to the NBA to Reebok or whatever, and we're providing brand awareness and those kind of things.
So you're educating all those brands right now about what's going on in the gaming and esports space.
No. I'm educating them about marketing and branding.
Right.
And leadership.
Right.
My degree was in curriculum and leadership.
Right.
So I'm doing that, and I'm speaking at maybe about 30 schools a year.
Okay.
So I'm now considered one of the best inspirational speakers in the country.
Right.
And I'm telling my journey everywhere I go, and I'm talking about music and I'm talking about video games and stuff. And as I'm speaking to students, I'm still like telling people to follow their dreams, and I'm like, I'm not even following my dream because I'm not touching gaming, I'm not touching music, and I'm not touching marketing like I used to.
Right.
And I'm still trying to figure this out. So I go to the Overwatch Championships. My friend, he was at N1, and I was at Foot Action, and we created the N1 mixtape tour.
Right.
So now he's the vice president of Activision now.
Okay.
So I watch him on Good Morning America and the Today Show, and I'm like, what is he doing up there? What's going on?
Right.
His name is Dan Cherry. Right. So I called Dan and said, congratulations, man. He said, Mark, you need to get involved with Overwatch. And I'm like, I'm not into that stuff. And he said, no, Mark, listen to me.
Right.
Your background, they need to have an endemic brand, not endemic versus non-endemic brands. He was like, Mark, you need to give them your perspective.
Right.
I still didn't see the connection. So I went to Overwatch Championships, and I saw the enormity, just the spectacle of it.
Where was the Overwatch Championship?
It was in Brooklyn.
Okay.
At the Barclays where the Nets play.
Sold out.
Sold out 2 days within 20, 30 minutes.
Right.
And the Nets never sold out the arena but one time the year before when LeBron came. So that should tell you something.
Right.
So when I got in the arena, 95% of the people inside the arena were white.
Right.
But if you know, Brooklyn is a melting pot.
Right.
And so I went outside to the different stores and asked, the Hispanics and the blacks, did you know Overwatch? They're like, what is that?
Right.
And I'm like, you need to go in. It's a $1 billion industry. They didn't understand what I was talking about.
Right.
So I'm watching all these white folks and from different walks of life just going crazy over Overwatch. They flew in DJ Khaled from the Beyonce Jay-Z tour. He came in and did like a 40-minute set. And I'm like, what in the world is going on here? Because I didn't know it was this big.
Right.
Because I hadn't seen it in person.
Right.
And then I went to the VIP room, and that's when it hit me. I got a chance to meet so many executives from so many different brands. And when they started telling me that they have esports in terms of competitions at universities, I'm like, well, that's cool, but is anybody teaching them about gaming industry?
Right.
No, nobody.
Right.
So I said, oh, okay. So then I started talking to some of the people at the universities that said, hey, we have this game stuff, but we don't have curriculum. Because how do you teach kids to get jobs in it?
Right.
Just like sports management. So I said, all right. And I looked at some of the schools that were, obviously UCI is the standard.
Yep.
So I looked at what UCI was doing. They had curriculum. They had people that came from industry. What they didn't have was someone like me. And I said, okay. So all these schools didn't have anybody black. They have anybody with strong marketing background. They just came from the gaming industry and they're teaching.
Right.
They don't have PhDs in it. So I said, okay, no one has a PhD in this stuff. I said, so this is interesting. So I said, I got a doctorate in curriculum. I can maybe create courses around this thing.
Right.
And similar to what you do in sport management. So I began asking all the executives from Overwatch to Activision to everywhere to the Collegiate Star. Riot. I'm asking the executives, if you were to have if you were going to hire an individual, what kind of skills would you be looking for? So they began telling me the kind of skills.
Sure.
So I began creating curriculum around what they were telling me,
right.
not by what I think sounds cool.
Right.
So I said, all right. So I started talking to universities, and they're like, hey, Mark, we think that you could come to our university and teach us. So instead of me, sending my information to the universities, I said, let me do a symposium for you,
right.
Which means I'll bring some of the people from the industry in to talk to you. They can talk about the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And then the next day, let me do a master class,
right.
Where I bring in people to talk about that particular industry, right. That area, and we do 6 hours of it. So the University of Florida invited me to be a distinguished professor there.
Okay.
And University of Florida has one of the top 5 journalism programs in the country.
Right.
So they invited me to come to do this, but I said I don't want to teach every day. They said, well, Mark, maybe you could do a week, and they came up with the idea of doing a 6-hour course at the very end of the week.
Right.
I said, what do I call it? I was watching Oprah Winfrey. She has the master class. I said, I'm a master of marketing. I'm gonna do a master class, but I'm gonna do it around gaming.
Right.
First time ever. Did this in 2018 at University of Florida, and then the Collegiate Star League, Wim Stocks, who's the CEO.
I had Wim on a couple weeks ago.
My guy,
he's awesome, bro.
Neil Duffy. They said they would be a part of it, and we would have the students learn about this for 4 hours, and then at the end of the 4 hours, we put them in groups of 5, and then they would come up with, how do we improve the Collegiate Star League or something like that. And they went into the room and they would go like a war room, each group. They had never met each other.
Right.
And next thing you know, and a winning team gets a 3-month paid internship at Collegiate Star League.
Right.
No one ever did that in gaming.
Right.
When we did that, they sent a press release out, and every university in the country started calling me. Can we do the master class? Can we do this? Because now I'm educating schools and saying, don't create a curriculum yet.
Right.
Do the master class and do the symposium,
right.
And that will give you an idea if you want to do a class or if you want to do a full-blown curriculum.
Right.
So I did that about 20 colleges the year after.
So what are you finding right now with that? Are they now taking that to a certificate or a minor or a major?
Everybody's different.
Okay.
You have schools like Ohio State, for example.
Yep.
The Ohio State.
Yeah.
And Ohio State decided to do a program where they're touching like 7 different majors, right? And then they built an arena. And then they went ahead to intramurals, and so they created that type of platform.
Right.
And then you go to, let's say, I don't know, Syracuse decided to do a course.
Where I'm from, bro.
Where you're from, up in Ithaca.
Yeah.
So they did something. So every school is doing something different.
Yeah, because Syracuse is more around the communication side because the
side.
communications is so strong.
Right.
Let me ask you this, because I talked to Dr. Debbie Lemon from Olone College, which is out in California, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and she was talking about her belief is that it really needs to exist if you're going to build a curriculum out, because you want to make it inclusive and you want to embrace everybody. She thinks it shouldn't fall under the sports umbrella. It shouldn't fall under the business. Esports and gaming, that if you build out a curriculum, should be its own entity.
Yeah, because if you tell someone let's major in esports, like say let's have a major in basketball, that makes no sense. So universities are doing this. Universities see this brand new shiny toy, and they think, oh, esports. Well, let's have Fortnite and let's have 2K or whatever. But I'm like, that's not building your enrollment. That's like there's some outstanding people that come to your school to play.
Right.
That's not building enrollment is saying, let's get a academic discipline here that will encompass, engineering, science, math, technology, communications, business, and create a holistic approach that way.
Yep.
And so universities are trying to figure that out right now.
Yep.
So when I talk to schools, I say, what are you trying to do? You're trying to build enrollment? Okay. If you want to build enrollment, don't go backwards. Don't go ahead and create a team.
Right.
Go ahead and create a curriculum, because that's going to attract people to come to your school. And so a lot of schools now are thinking about doing that. And some people put it in communications. Some people put it in business school. Some people put it in I think UCI, they put it in student affairs, for example, right? But I think it's gonna every school's different. So I can't tell a school where it should live or where it shouldn't live.
Right.
So I don't think you should have a major. Some people have majors. It depends on your school. Every school is different. I think you have a concentration, right? Or you can have a certificate program, or you can do all three.
Right.
So I'm in the process of working with schools on creating certificate programs. UCI and a few others have it already, where they get a certificate after completing X amount of courses. But it's got to be endorsed by the industry. You just can't just pop up and do it. Right. And the dangers that I see when the school says we have an academic curriculum, I'm like, okay, well, who's teaching it? What kind of jobs they're going to get? Who do you have? Who's on your advisory board?
Right.
And if you can't tell me those things, you're setting your students up for failure.
Right.
So I say, do what I did, get to know the industry. Well, I knew the industry, but reconnect with them, or however you get to know them. But find out from the industry what kind of things that they need in that curriculum.
Right.
You just don't create a curriculum out of sport management. So there's a lot of sport managers out there that think, well, I teach sports management, and I read
Just
Sports
take it
Business
up.
Journal,
Yep.
so I can teach it. No, you can't.
Right.
You need to know the industry.
Well, I think it's and everything that you're saying, I love. And actually, when I had Marcus on earlier, we were talking about this, and one of the things that I think is very necessary is to make it so that it's not just theoretical learning, right? But it's experiential learning. Is to bring in exactly what you said, the companies, especially in that local area.
Right.
So here in South Florida, if we've got a university that wants to start a program, we'll bring in Alienware.
Yep.
Bring in Ghost Punch, as a developer.
Yep.
Bring in the Heat Check.
Yep.
Bring in Misfits Gaming, and have them maybe be involved in whether it's a day of training or a day
I'm
of
ahead of
teaching.
you. We're going to do that.
Yeah.
That's what we're about to do.
Yeah.
Like, I have a great relationship with 2K, the commissioner.
Yep.
And, of course, you got the Heat Gaming here. Of course we're going to work with them.
Yep.
And my point is that, you have St. Thomas here. You have Barry here. St. Thomas has a great program.
Jerry was here yesterday. Jerry Sanchez.
That's my guy.
Yeah,
He was here?
Yeah, he was here
Oh, I
yesterday.
love Jerry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Jerry, they invited me to the president of St. Thomas, Mr. Armstrong. He wanted me to come there. So when I have a show called Dr. Marc's Masterclass, so he actually made a pitch to me live on my show to come and join him to create an esports program there.
Yep.
And then I got the same pitch from Florida Memorial University.
Right.
The president, Dr. Japhis Hardrick, he contacted me. I knew him for 5 years, and he said, Marc, I need you here. And then all the social unrest and all the things that's going on in America, I said, okay, I love St. Thomas, got a brand new business school coming up, great facilities. You got Jerry down there, they got a great program there, but there's no academics.
Right.
But they have the second oldest sport management program in the country. Great compliment. And it's just an ideal situation. But then when I see all this stuff going on, and I see that this school only has 20% black male, and they're trying to increase their enrollment, and they're not looked upon as a go-to school for black kids. They go to either Bethune-Cookman or go to FAMU, or Everett Waters. This is the third or fourth choice. I said, what can I do differently? So I turned all these schools down. LSU was one of my schools that I was doing a visiting professorship with LSUE, the community college. I was getting ready to create a program at both of those schools.
Right.
I said no to them. I said no to St. Thomas, and I said no. And I said I'm going to do Florida Memorial.
Okay.
So we're about to create something very special. The cool thing is that Jerry and I have a great relationship, and the president of St. Thomas and I have a great relationship, and I'm getting to know Barry. And I said, why don't we create something so powerful in South Florida that we can create our own ecosystem?
Yeah, for sure.
So it doesn't have to be
That's Lance Hotchkiss over there, isn't it? At
Yeah,
Barry,
yep,
University. Yep.
That's why I said it doesn't have to be me. It's all about us. But my thing is, how do we get more black men, young black men, to come to school? And I think that gaming and the culture of that could be an impetus to bring them to campus and get people, even any kind of person, to come to campus and want to be a part of creating a program like that.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
Now that's very exciting. So you're doing that as what, a consultant, or are you working?
No, they
brought you on.
My title is Global Practitioner in Practice.
Okay.
Yeah, so I get a chance to not only do that, but I get a chance to work with their website and their social media and help to increase their awareness on there. I also work closely with the president and the admissions office to help to build the drive enrollment there.
Right.
I also work closely with the community.
Right.
It's kind of more like an external person, but yet I'll teach a course and create courses that's going to bubble up so that you'll get more kids interested to create the impetus to creating a program.
Yep.
So
where's the school again?
It's in Miami Gardens.
Miami Gardens.
1.2 miles away from
Oh no, Miami Gardens over
St.
here.
Thomas.
St. Thomas. Okay.
Yep.
How big is the school?
about 1,200 students.
1,200. Okay.
It's a beautiful campus. It's got the palm trees. It's a hidden gem.
Right.
And so is St. Thomas. Yeah. But the problem is, if you're not from this area, you're not going to know that they exist.
Right.
And you've got these gems right here, right here in South Florida.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was a no-brainer. Louisiana's a beautiful place. Yeah. Obviously New Jersey. I started a program at St. Peter's in New Jersey City. I started their esports program there.
Right.
But I'm like, it's cold. I grew up in Jersey, lived in Massachusetts, lived in West Virginia, lived in India. I don't want to be in cold weather.
Right.
And I said, what better place? Miami.
So you're down here now, and so you're starting the curriculum side of it. You're also building a competitive and a club team, or?
Yeah, that's going to be second, because to me, the most important thing is to get students there. Right. The competitive team comes in when you have people that know about it. You just don't build a team just to be building a team. If enrollment is your number one way to get people to come to your school, anybody can go to any school to play video games. You have over 150 schools now that have 1,000 schools rather that have gaming teams, right? And maybe 150 to have varsity teams. I'm not trying to compete in that.
Right.
I want students to have an academic curriculum.
So how long is it going to take you to put that curriculum together?
I've already written curriculum, so it's not going to take long.
Right.
It's just a matter of doing it.
Right.
The other thing is that, the sad part, not sad, I'll say there's only about 60 universities across the country that have an academic component to it.
Right.
So, and there's no HBCU that has one.
Okay.
Yeah, not yet.
Right.
But you have schools like
I know Ryan Johnson's working hard on that. I know some of the HBCUs up more towards the Atlanta area are working towards it.
Well,
now.
Morehouse is, I know. I know that right now Johnson C. Smith is actually going to be the first one to have a program.
They made an announcement 3 weeks ago, a month ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
But Hampton's the first one to actually get a grant, $300,000 grant, and they're getting ready to start their academic curriculum next year.
Right.
And then you've got North Carolina Central that has a program they're going to start. Virginia State. You also have Lincoln University. There's about 12 of them that are serious. And the A&T is probably going to be the juggernaut, probably. I just got a feeling of that.
When you start that program, you don't start it right away with a major, right? You start it,
you do a couple classes. Like I'm doing a class this fall, 2 8-week classes. One is going to be called The History of Arcades, Video Games, and the Emergence of Esports.
Okay.
And then the second part of the curriculum is going to be the business of esports. Okay. And then second semester is going to be something cultural around esports and gaming, and also the shoe industry. So my classroom setup is going to be, I'll have a few arcade games there. I'll have a shoe wall in there to show the shoe industry. Some of these in here. Yes. It's going to be set up where where people are going to feel like they're in a gaming space and in the cultural space around music and entertainment. I have a music thing set up on the side. I want them to feel connected to it, like
Yep.
if they were going home.
Yep.
And that's how you teach the class. You teach the class like you are playing the game, but yet you're now being educated about the ecosystem and about the business acumen of the game,
Yep.
of the industry.
Yep.
So in order to talk about esports, I got to talk about the arcade industry first.
Right.
You need to know where it came from,
Right.
So I don't see anybody doing that. So I decided to do that. And so I'm going to be sitting down with a number of people, and probably yourself, and sit down and say, what should this curriculum look like?
Right.
Talking to Wim and these other guys, what should this look like when I do this curriculum?
Yep.
Even though I've written several of them,
Right.
I'm going to include them in it. And I think that's the formula for it.
Yep.
And you go from there.
Yeah, I agree. That's amazing, dude. It's amazing. It's and so you're looking at like mid-August, right? The students come back in mid-August.
August 24th. Yep.
August 24th.
Yep, yeah.
So you already have the first class.
I already have the course number and everything. It's being marketed to the students as we speak.
Okay. So you'll have that course, and then in the fall or the spring is the second course.
So you have like the first 8 weeks of the semester will be a class.
Okay.
Right? And then the second 8 weeks of the semester there'll be another class.
Okay.
And then in the spring it'll be the same kind of thing.
Okay.
And then next fall we'll probably add.
And then you're gonna keep adding.
Yeah, until we get this one concentration.
Right.
And then build it to whatever we need to build it to.
Yeah.
And it's not just going to be esports. It's going to be music. It's going to be film. It's going to
Yeah.
be fashion.
Yeah.
So it's going to be all those things that part of the culture of what young people do.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's fantastic.
Yep.
And you're already starting to market that to the students, who you have already on campus.
Yeah, so so you know how usually when you go to university they say here's a brand new course and it's like a 1-page description of it.
Right.
No, I've got pictures of people on it. I say who's going to be coming with their title. Like I have Wim on there. I have
Wim's coming down?
Oh yeah.
Or you can do them virtually.
No, I'm gonna have him come down.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Such a great
have you
guy.
come down?
Yeah. I'm local, so it's easy for me.
Yeah. So I think the thing is they need to feel and touch people that are in the space.
Yep.
Learn about the
I think
system.
that's critical.
Yeah, and then for us, it's not about there's no book on it. I'm like, we're the book. We're creating it.
Yeah.
And by creating it, by bringing people to the classroom, but also me educating them. So of course, it's going to be PowerPoint slides of me having to educate them on the history of it. But I think it's also important for them to feel and touch things in the classroom by having some of these things in the classroom. So they're giving me a space to do that, which is awesome.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's amazing, man. It's amazing, some amazing stuff you're doing. So that was, the story that you just told is great, and that's where you are today. So aside from, and you're doing all that, because we got to close up.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you're doing that you think that we should really be talking about, or is that really consuming basically all of your time right now?
Well, two things. One is that I have a show on LinkedIn now called Dr. Marc's Masterclass. So LinkedIn, I'm one of 200 people around the world to be part of this beta test that go live on LinkedIn. But I go live on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook at the same time.
Right.
And I average about 9 to 10 million views a month on
That's
whatever I post.
Yeah, it's
so that's why
amazing.
they chose me.
Yeah,
I feel great about that.
Right.
But now, so I'm bringing that to my to the Florida Memorial. But I'm also going to now have a backdrop of gaming associated with this now too, so the students can participate in it.
You said this once a week?
It's 3 days a week: Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What
from
time?
7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
7 in the morning?
7 at night.
7 at night.
PM, yep.
And it's a half hour?
About an hour. Yeah.
And it's just you?
It's me talking to college presidents, athletic directors,
Okay.
and university people. But also, I've interviewed Beyonce's dad, who managed her career. I've talked to Hill Harper, the actor. I've talked to Rick Barry. I've talked to Nancy Lieberman.
Right.
I've talked to Carl Lewis. I talked to, and then because of what's happened in America, I did a show on, what can white people do to help to change and racism in America. So I have 8 of my good friends that are white from different walks of life talking. I had a show talking about being a black man in America. I had a show talking about being how to coach black athletes,
How do you pick your topics?
based on what's going on in America.
Just what's going on, current events.
Yeah, but normally my normal show is what the master class. But I happen to do those one-off things because it was important for me to do it because of what was happening.
Right.
And then the other thing, I work closely with Donald Trump, President Trump, and Betsy DeVos and the Department of Education. So I work with them on finding funding for historically black colleges and low resource institutions. There's no educator working on that kind of stuff for esports.
Right.
And I'm it.
Right.
So that's something that I haven't really talked about publicly, but I've been working with them for the last 6 months on this.
Okay.
And then now, because of the pandemic, we obviously hosted, but I'm going to be working closely with them on esports. So I did the first ever symposium at the White House Initiative back in September.
Okay.
So that's how I met Betsy DeVos.
Right.
As you know, her son is the general manager for the Orlando 2K team.
Yeah.
So she's big on esports now because of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's awesome, man. It sounds like you're having fun too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because we talked about that. Find something you do, you have a passion for, and you're not working any day.
And I was walking through here, and I was dressed down like this, and I'm like, wait a minute, education should be like this.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at Hip Hop Gamer and his energy. I'm like, that's how I am.
Yeah.
I don't want to be wearing a three-piece suit and doing PowerPoint and talking about the trickle-down theory. No, let's have some fun with it.
Right.
But then you motivate, you educate, you inspire at the same time. But you're also teaching them how. We're not doing multiple choice in terms of my class. I don't want to trick them.
Right.
So they're going to do essay and they do group projects because essay, I want to see if you can write.
Right.
You're going to need to have writing skills.
Right.
I want to see if you can present. And if you can't, I'm going to teach you how to communicate better.
Yeah.
And if you see something that you love, you're going to want to communicate better.
Yeah.
So I don't want people thinking that these young people that they can't talk, they can't write, and they do ums and Ds and no. You're going to learn how to speak intelligently about something that you love.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you can do that, imagine the kind of education we're going to create for them and something that they love to do.
Yeah.
That's what I'm excited about.
So important in today's day and age, and so much of your story that you just told comes from you being proactive and getting out there, and also your network and the people that you worked with.
Right.
But is also once you get the opportunity and the spotlight's on, then you shine. Like you said, like when you were in front of, was it Dr. Lipchak or
Dr. Lipchak, yeah.
I mean, putting him there in the front row and then presenting and then impressing him. That's what you got to do, man.
Yeah, and it's like I said, Wim Stocks and there's a lot of great folks in the space that, again, if it wasn't for Wim and some of the others, I would not be this immersed into it.
Right.
But then also Dr. Hardrick, the president of Florida Memorial, he saw something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'll come.
Yeah.
And the provost Cooper, same thing. They saw it and they said, let's do it.
Yeah.
Because not only are they creating this, but they got football back after 62 years. They got a ban now, right? They got flag football for women. Right, and they got women's volleyball, beach volleyball. At a black college, beach volleyball, women's flag football doesn't happen.
Right.
And then now you got this, so now they're going to be one of the schools, cutting edge, innovative schools.
Right.
And I want to make sure that not only are they the leading HBCU, but are one of the leading schools in the country.
Yeah.
And so that people will say, I want to go to Miami, Florida, and I want to go to that school.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. I'm really glad you stopped by. Why did you stop by today? Did you just see it? Like
Hip Hop Gamer is a good friend.
Oh, really?
And so Hip Hop Gamer and I, he called me and said, I'll be in Miami. And I'm like, bro, I live an hour and a half away.
Yeah.
And he goes, why don't you come down? And he said, I know you probably can't. I said, I'm supposed to be coming to the campus on Tuesday.
Right.
I'll come.
Right.
So I got in my car and I drove down.
Yeah.
And I'm here.
I had Hip Hop on a month ago.
Uh-huh.
And he's the only person that I've had on where I was like, I can't even try to match his energy.
Yeah, his energy.
You can't even try, man.
No.
Because if I do, it won't be authentic.
No.
You know.
And you got to be yourself.
You do. And that's who he is, man.
His energy is. Yeah. I have energy, but his energy is off the charts.
It's off the charts, and it doesn't stop either.
Yeah.
And it's authentic. Like
yes.
He's not like. Because I've been around people, by the way, we'll kind of close up, but I've been around some of the, what do they call, reality TV, like some of that stuff. And so I've been around guys that are gamers, and then they're shooting a show. And I've been pulled over to the side and said, okay, we want you to step into the show and just kind of say, hey, guys, how are you doing?
Right.
So here we are. We're down like in Miami on South Beach. And I can't remember the name of the hotel, but we're there doing something for After School All-Stars, which is Arnold Schwarzenegger's.
Yep.
And so we're doing that. It's a big poker event. And I come over and they bring me over into the group. And they've got their cameras on and everything. And I'm like, hey, guys, how's the event been? And they're like, hey, what's up? You know, what's going on? And I'm like, wait a second, that's not really where we are right now. That you're being fake.
Yeah.
And I'm terrible at being fake.
Yeah.
You know?
And the reality, and that's the thing about the show that you're doing, the show that I'm doing, the people that are the influencers, whatever you want to call them, prior to COVID, they're going to be exposed because people want authenticity, especially right now.
Right.
And that's what we do on our show. That's what you clearly are doing on your show.
Yep.
And the people that are not authentic, they're going to get weeded out. And eventually, this is the new normal is going to be. It's going to be these kind of conversations, real conversations, authentic conversations, an honest conversation, not over the top stuff.
Yep.
And so I'm glad that I have a chance to be on your platform, man.
I'm so glad you came down. It's going to be good to have you in this ecosystem down here.
Oh yeah,
you know, and blockchain's right over there. You know, we're going to be doing some stuff with Tampa and Orlando. Like I think we're going to become a force in the next 6 months to a year. We're going to be on
earlier,
the
when I was like, oh my goodness, things that he's doing. I'm like, and you're not that far away from us. And after you told me that you live here, I'm like, well, good. I got another ally.
Yeah. Super exciting times, man.
Yes,
I love this industry. I think great things are happening, and I think we're all going to help make it a better space and drive it faster to wherever it's going to go.
And then a
What's up,
mayor,
man?
he's big and he loves gaming.
So Mayor Suarez, he's I don't know if he's here today. I haven't seen him
He was here.
yet.
Yeah,
he was here
had-
earlier.
He played against
did play.
a hip hop gamer.
Yeah.
He's a big fan of esports, and he talked about why the city of Miami needs to be more immersed in it.
Yeah.
And that's all. I just did like this after
Yeah.
that. I'm like, a mayor that gets it.
Yeah,
Great.
so awesome.
And he's young. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity.
Yeah, very cool. Pleasure meeting you, man.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Mark.
I'd like to thank Dr. Marc for sharing his time, experience, and knowledge with us today. This was a great surprise for me. Dr. Marc was visiting our Ultimate Gamer studio experience in Miami and accepted a last-minute invitation to spend some time with us on the podcast. I got sucked right into his amazing story and left our brief conversation a huge fan and a little bit wiser than I started. He's one of those people you want to listen to and learn from, and his life experience is honestly book-worthy. You can listen to Marc again now, and you can also find timestamped segments of the show, links to his social pages, and more information about his projects and media in the show notes. If you enjoyed our discussion, please let us know. Continue the conversation with me across all social platforms and become a part of the Ultimate Gamer community today by subscribing at ultimategamer.com. We release a new show every day of the week, Monday through Friday, so be the first to join us for some outstanding upcoming guests and or dive back into the library of previous All About the Game pods to hear from some of the most brilliant minds in the space. Experts like President of Media and Branding at Misfits Gaming, Ella Pravitz, Esports Talent Manager, Chris Toussaint, and Esports Attorney at Carlton Fields, Steve Blickensderfer, just to name a few. You can find all these episodes and more on the Ultimate Gamer website, on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your pods. And finally, please like, rate, and review the show. It helps us reach the gaming community to spread the word and share the wisdom of our guests, as well as some of the most thought-provoking stories in the industry. Shout out, as always, to the Ultimate Gamer. I look forward to being with you on the next All About the Game podcast.